I do see fundamentally many of these product engineering software companies, what they are really doing is they're shaping our experience of the world in the future.
Being able to predict so when you make an aircraft or, for example, a car, being able to predict what the final outcome would be in terms of how the product will turn out, or what if something sort of breaks, how is the end outcome going to happen, how many pieces it breaks into, how do I predict a certain challenge that happens later? Will the CAE software, computer-aided engineering, right, help me predict certain outcomes?
So just to give you a brief background of the company, MSC is a 55-year-old company and really originated with the NASA's missions right from the start. And the two founders, or the original founders of the company, developed this code, and that's how the journey began. And the CAE space is basically simulation software that helps you predict product behavior.
Right.
So in a way, it adds immense value to the customers and our historical customers, new segments. And of course, if you're designing any new product, these are the type of softwares that you will end up using. And we have a wide variety of applications. Primarily, we play across aerospace, automotive, manufacturing, machinery, and so on and so forth. Right from typical the structural physical form of the product to anything simulating the fluid flow or the, let's say, air in the room, how it's going to flow, or oil in a pipeline.
How do you use the content route to be able to better effectively reach out to new and existing customers and talk about the work that you're doing and how you can help them solve their problems?
I think one of the differences of a B2B industry versus a sort of a B2C play is really the speed and the efficacy with which you go through the journey and consume the product, right? If I was buying a chocolate or a FMCG product, my buyer's journey is really, really small. In a B2B space, it's really a long-term lock-in. It's a lot of strategic, critical decisions are involved in the process, etc.
Right.
So I think that play is very different. Point number one. And to address that play, my view is that the buyer's journey, particularly in the B2B space, has shifted over the last every 20 years. And if you combine the two, the future, the next 10, 15 years, I really see the buyer journey evolving into what I term education, engagement, and experience.
Right.
So I think in the B2B space, there's a lot more educational involved, and which is a combination of awareness and a little more beyond that. So I think the whole understanding of the space is critical, point number one. Second, the ability to scale and develop content for your specific audience becomes equally important. And then the third part is about the distribution. And many times I think the combination of these three is the distinguishing factor between, I would say, good marketing and great marketing.
The average decision maker in companies reads about 10 odd content pieces before finally sort of making a decision. Correct. In technology, right? So how do you really reach out to them, the decision maker?
Today, as a marketeer, I get ample feedback on my product. So that's a great place to start. And I believe the challenge now for marketeers is not feedback or information, it's the meaning and actionable information of how does this translate into a better product or a better messaging or a better marketing strategy. So that's point number one. The second is, the term called account-based marketing, particularly in the B2B space, has been thrown around quite a bit. It is fundamentally, again, a conversational deepening of relationship with your existing customers, and up to upsell and cross-sell.
Right.
So there is a lot of play, and I think, again, content is really becoming the key. So that is another great opportunity for marketeers. The third part, really, I believe, is the marriage between narrative/storytelling and the distribution of social. Great content on a not so good distribution platform is not necessarily going to help you, and vice versa. Some great content but not leveraging it properly is also a challenge.
So as a B2B brand marketer, what are the one or two things that you feel you can pick up from consumer brands and how they market? So is there sort of some learnings there that you can also sort of bring back into the B2B space?
Sure. One of them is the addition and increase of emotional content in messaging. I think the
This is something you just
B2C
mentioned,
brands,
yeah.
which I already mentioned, are doing exceptionally well, and maybe B2B brands have to learn from it, point number one. The second particular aspect is also a bit more focus on narratives and storytelling that I think the advertising fraternity in B2C does exceptionally well with good focused market research. And translating that into a B2B context is fairly challenging, but it's not impossible. That's what I feel. And the third part is really execution at scale. Many times in the B2B context, you're working with a limited set.
Very defined audience.
Very defined audience. And maybe it also limits the way you think about marketing. Maybe that's a perception change as well, especially when content is accessible across platforms.
Right. So tell us a bit about Kaustav Nande outside of the workplace. What do you do on the weekends? What are your hobbies?
Well, I try to spend time with my family on the weekends for sure. In terms of hobbies, I like to play cricket many times.
Okay, in sports.
So a little bit of sports. And then more about the passion is I do see fundamentally many of these product engineering software companies. What they are really doing is they're shaping our experience of the world in the future. And the ability to impact that future in a very small positive way is, I think, what really drives me. So that's an excellent way to really keep myself motivated and contribute not just to a particular company or a particular product, but a larger ecosystem or in which we sort of work and thrive.